Hello, hello. It's Great Monday Summer School. Woo-hoo. We are maxing and chillaxing here at Great Mondays. Summer School is in session. So this is episode 2, class 2, where we're going to get into values. If you haven't seen episode 1 about purpose, head back over there and do purpose. But today we're getting into values. It is the second in six episodes, 6 components of company culture. And today, special guest star, the infallible,
True,
incredible
not infallible. Everything's a
Rachel
prototype.
Davis, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, aloha again. Nice to see you all again.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you, Rachel. Well, thanks again for joining us. We appreciate it. We are working today, and all of these episodes are about the new Great Mondays templates on Miro. So Rachel is our Miro ninja, and she essentially helped me make this a reality. So we are super grateful to Rachel, and she is here today to help explain what Miro is and how we use it as we make our own mistakes throughout the process. So why don't we go ahead and crank that up, fire up
yeah,
Miro.
yeah. Let me get over here. I think I actually said to you, Josh, I was like, we should do this thing. And you were like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Absolutely.
All right. So can you see this? Can you see me zooming in?
Yep, absolutely. Right. So we're starting here on a board. This is our first board where it tells us a little bit about what's going on. So values, what are values? Let's start with that. What are values? Values are the 3 to 5 most important things that your organization needs to focus on. Last time, purpose, we talked about purpose being the North Star or the peak of the mountain. The peak of the mountain, let's talk about mountain climbing as the metaphor. Your values are your guides or your guardrails. So in my book, Great Mondays, I actually illustrate values with little flags. They're kind of like the guides. How are we doing? And what that does
kind of like that.
Oh, perfect. There they are. There they are. So the flags indicate or represent this idea that values are your guardrails. So when you are leading your expedition, you're going to say, well, hey, we're hitting the mountain. The values are how we do our work, what is most important when we do our work. And they're there so that you don't go where you're not supposed to, either because it's dangerous or it's cheating or any other number of reasons. Values are so important. They are a tool to help every organization focus on the 3 to 5 most important things. Now, one thing I want to tell everybody, Rachel, is that most companies will have values, but they think about values as permanent. They think about that these are the values that we have forever. And that's not, I don't feel like, you could do it that way, but I don't feel like that's the best way to do values. Values is an opportunity to prioritize the things that are most important, that are going to move the needle in the next 2 or 3 years. And so when I work with my clients on values, it is, these are opportunities to kind of focus in on those shorter or medium term goals. They're not permanent. And what I recommend is you would look and evaluate every 2 to 3 years. Are they still working for us? Do we need to move on? That's going to be a really important element. All right. Now,
everything's a prototype. It applies everywhere.
It applies everywhere. Everything's a prototype.
All right. So, and when would you do this activity?
Well, you would do this activity if you might have values already, but if you feel like your people need some guidance, right? What does success look like? Values are essentially expectations around what behaviors you are expecting. Or if you are growing and are just about to crest 50 employees, you can absolutely refresh your values. If you're 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, you can always do it. But do not cross 50, do not pass go, do not collect your $200 if you don't have values, because once you've crested 50, then you're going to start to see the culture of the organization evolve on its own. And so what we want to do is be able to identify and codify, what does success look like? Now
All
today, I've
right.
got some tips for this activity. What you're going to work with your team. You're going to
Oh,
be. You can also work by yourself. And what Rachel's about to show you is we've actually got two different kinds of exercises.
yes. You can have 25 employees or less, or more than 25 employees. We talked about the 50 employee mark, but in terms of doing these activities, you'll see how each of these differ just a little bit based on the size of your company. And it'll make more sense, I think, when we actually go through the activities. So,
It's a very similar activity, but it takes a little bit of a different turn depending on how many folks are in your organization.
a little
Any
twist like the
Oh
garnish
yeah,
on your drink over there,
that's
Josh.
exactly right. I'm so glad you mentioned. I remember that I have a cocktail here. That's
All
delicious.
right.
Yeah. Anything else before we dive into this?
Well, I think I already dove into it. So,
Okay, perfect. We're diving right
yeah,
into it,
there we go.
just like a pool and in when it's hot out.
Cannonball.
Woo! Here we are.
All right.
All right. Who represents the future of your culture? So, when we think about values, I like to identify and build on what is working. What is working? Now, for big companies, maybe you can scroll down to the one below. For big companies,
Oh, yeah. Let's get our little, you'll have
boop,
this on your.
hot link.
Boop.
So,
All
who
right.
represents the future of your company, so your culture? So, what I like to say is we always work on bringing together a group of culture all stars, or we call them culture ambassadors. These are the people that are represent kind of, if you could clone those people and then you would have the kind of the perfect culture. These are often high potential employees. These are folks that have a following, if you will. Maybe they're not a leader formally, but people really trust their opinions. They're people that they just really understand and get what's happening inside the organization. Now, what we'll do here is we'll look to those folks and we'll say, okay, identify two of those kinds of people, and then let's think about what makes them so amazing. And so what we've done is said, okay, list at least three specific behaviors that exemplify why you might select this person as a culture ambassador. So, Rachel, is there somebody that in your orbit that you would say is a culture ambassador? And what would be an example of a behavior that they
Am
have?
I gonna? I get to.
I'm springing it on Rachel. She's got to
You're
think about it
springing
for a
it on
second.
me.
I
Well,
am.
you know who I'm going to use? I'm going to use our Miroverse ambassador who does all the Miroverse verse publishing. So
Beautiful.
why not, right? We would just that's a fantastic community over there in Miro,
I
and
love it.
it's just a great place where people are. You talked about people within a company and having influence or people following them, and I was kind of thinking about this as like an internal influencer. And so Helena is the Mirrorverse ninja, if you will, on that side,
Mm-hmm.
helping make all those templates. And I think she is such a culture all-star or ambassador for Miro. So we could put her here, Helena.
All right. Perfect.
Yeah.
Helena.
If
All
I'm
right.
it, yeah. And so what are some of those behaviors that I think make her a culture all-star for Miro? Well, she is very engaged with the customer, right? Very
Mm-hmm.
responsive, and I maybe even she's kind and just kindness overall, I think.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Yeah.
I put
Uh,
authentically enthusiastic. I thought I've had a little bit of a space time with her, so I thought that was good.
yeah.
So that's
So
great. Those are perfect examples. So if we were to think about, if we were doing wanted to define values for Miro or the Miroverse, this might be a person to identify. So we say, great.
Yeah.
So we love Helena just sort of from a gut feeling. She's like the person for us. So that's great. So then what we want is everybody to, in the group, to name somebody. And maybe you'll get some duplicates and maybe you'll get some new folks. But what's
I think
powerful about
duplicates
this,
are good though, right? Because there might
duplicates
be
are,
different behaviors that they talk about. Yeah.
and it sort of reinforces or confirms that choice. And I think that's a really wonderful example. So
Yeah.
once you've gone through this, we have this really interesting part of the exercise that we cluster. So maybe Rachel, you can talk a little bit about clustering.
So clustering just kind of helps you organize your ideas, right? I think of it like this: if you have a million tabs open in your browser,
I
so the
do.
browser organization. Now that's my brain too. I have a million tabs open in my brain, right? So just a way to organize your ideas and your thoughts and put together similar ideas. It helps you identify gaps. If you were like, okay, we have all these behaviors that relate to each other and these that relate to each other, and we're starting to see some themes emerge, but I knew this theme, I don't see this theme, but I think it's part of what we want to identify with our values. Why didn't we identify it, right? So it helps you make sense. It's a sense making tool.
I love it. That's right. So
Mhm.
what we'll do is we basically take all of our stickies from over on the left, bring them over,
Oh
and
yeah, let's
start.
bring them over.
Let's
Let's
bring
do
them
it.
over. So grab them.
Yeah, I'm actually going to copy them so they remain there. You can use your copy and paste, I believe. Here, let's
Hmm.
go over here, and if you highlight them, right, you can use your copy and paste. I use Command C on a Mac, Control C on a PC. And this works really well in Miro, and just kind of paste it over here with Command V or Control V. And so we've got things here. Do any of these relate to each
Hmm.
other?
Well,
Kind
I
of
did.
like maybe you had another one over here that says always listens or something
Hmm.
like that. That might.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of engaged with the customer, always
Hmm.
listens, right? So
Exactly. Hmm. So
yeah.
then, all right. So we've got our little group. So this is what you want to do with all of them. And you're going to take a few minutes with everybody to work together to figure out where our groups are. Now, it's never perfect. We always kind of have these like merging groups, but like it's, like Rachel said, it's like a sense making activity. You've kind of got like, oh, we've got
Mhm.
this little thing about working
It's like
together over
hula.
here.
No,
It's like hula over here and over here. So we've got collaboration or like working together, and then we've got customer centricity over here, enthusiasm or passion or expertise or whatever it might be. So we
yeah.
take
What would you
those.
call this?
Let's see. Well,
I'm gonna
so
put
we
you on the spot now because you
yeah,
put
no,
me on
that's
the
fair.
spot.
That's fine. That's fine. I appreciate it. Yeah, yeah, that's fine. So, all right. So we could, depending on, right? So this one could be all about customer first mentality. I don't know. All right. So it
Yeah,
could
there
be
we
something
go.
like that, or it could be, if you take this idea of engaged, listening, responsive, it could be more like treat people, um, um, listen. I don't know. It's like
The golden
see.
rule.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. So yeah, that might be. So it's like see people or slash the golden rule. Um,
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe, right? Like, so it depends on the intent, right? You have to discuss with your group.
Hmm.
So those are either the case. Now, what you've done here, and after you go through this, is you have started to create what we call value themes. Now, these aren't values, they're value themes. And value themes are very powerful because you don't have to get stuck on the words, it's just the idea, the group of them. Then, once you have these value themes, we're going to do some voting, just like we did voting on purpose. We're going to vote together. What are your top 5 themes? You might have 10 themes. Which ones are kind of rising, coming forward, starting to rise to the top? Like, or maybe through the conversation, you're like, whoa, these two are actually similar. They actually mean something else. And so
Yeah.
that's where you're going to start to like think and simplify and start to work out which ones are most important, which ones are the are the behaviors, describe a category of behaviors that are going to move you in the right direction for the next, they're going to make a big difference in your business life
And
for the next couple of
and
years.
Josh, what should people think about when they're voting? What makes a good theme? You've got a
Mm.
couple tips here.
Yeah. So one of the things that we talk about is it a high leverage point? So will it have a big impact? If you can get everybody to start acting in this way or delivering on this idea, is it going to make a big difference in your work or the results? Um, is this theme like you're like, well, that's interesting, but like not so important? Or is it like, oh my gosh, totally, we all need to start taking responsibility for our work. We don't have that culture of accountability. That's really important. Um, and then does the grouping have you don't want to, it doesn't want to be overwrought. You want to like, does the grouping make sense? Is it easy to understand? Are you clear about it? If you're not, stop, take a break and say, okay, what are we actually talking about here? Maybe the value theme isn't correct. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, this is just a tool for describing and understanding what your team sees as important
Mm-hmm.
inside your organization.
And I've always loved this activity because you say to someone, what's your values? And it's like the swan in the snowstorm, the blank page, right? And it's hard to articulate that without basing it on some of these behaviors that we're talking about.
Exactly, exactly. So once you've identified your value themes, we have a little spot on the right where you can put them down. Remember, you have 3 to 5. Now, sometimes value themes, you can have more than 5 value themes. You can have 6 or 7 because we haven't made a decision yet. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're not sure. Maybe it's like we like all of them, or we just had this conversation and it's like they're not quite perfect yet. Totally fine. Not a problem. What is a problem is if you end up at your values and you have more than 5, because after 5, people can't remember what the hell it's like they got so many other things they got to do. That's the reason why we do 3 to 5. The more that you
Yeah, I
have,
get you.
right? The more you have, the less each one means. So we just worked with this startup, and we ended up with 4, which was awesome. One time we ended up with 3. We've never ended up with 2. I think that's probably a little too few.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the
All
end
right.
of that theme. Now, if you have, this is for organizations that have many people, and we'll define this as more than 25 in this case, because you want to be able to, it's not just you and your founder, face to face, and you're like, you're the all-star. No, you're the all-star, right? So it's like, what do you do if that's the case? What if there's just 3 of you or 5 of you? Well, we have something for you.
We have
It's
something for that.
it's exactly right. It's the same activity, but instead of choosing a culture ambassador, you choose a perfect, what we're calling perfect presenter. And I actually accidentally put in Helena's note.
I was like, wait, I'm having
I,
a
well, I
little
was,
deja vu.
yeah. So, so what we can do, and this can be done with a larger organization as well. But what you want is what choose 2 people. Here's the instructions. Choose 2 people,
Can it
alive
be
or
a
dead.
character? Like, can I put Big Bird? I love Big
Totally.
Bird.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Put Big Bird. Harry Potter is one that we've had.
Oh,
Um,
Harry Potter, love it.
what was Lizzo. Lizzo was a
Oh,
really
yeah,
good
yeah.
one. Yeah, she became the kind of the mascot. So
Ah.
you want to choose each person in the group. You want to choose. We want to end up with a good number, but here we've said choose 2 people. You can split
Mhm,
up if you only have 8 people in your on your working group here that's working on this exercise. Then each one can do 1 or 2. If you
mhm,
Sometimes if it's a larger group, then we'll break them up into groups of 3 and you get to choose 1 or 2. But again,
yeah.
alive or dead, real or fictitious. Who the instead of before it was who is a culture ambassador? Who represents the future of this organization? Who represents the culture of this organization? This one, this one's like who would you imagine represents the company? Like if you could get them, we call it perfect presenter because it's like if you could run an ad with someone who was your spokesperson, who might that be? And just you just kind of yell it out, and it's like what is it like? What strikes you as correct? And then once you have that, So we've got Obama, Harry Potter, Big Bird. We'll put Lizzo.
Yeah, I started writing some things here for Harry Potter for our next
Oh,
step.
the next
Yeah.
step, right? So the next step, list at least same thing. List at least 3 attributes that you admire that person, right? So, tell us about what you've chosen here for Harry Potter. Why is Harry
Well,
Potter a good
Harry
representation?
Potter, right? He sees the magic in everything. Sees all the magic, at least towards, after he realizes he's magic. And then I think a big thing, thinking about characters, values, friendships, and relationships, right? So these are things that could come out in values.
Exactly. Perfect. So that's exactly what we want to look at. And again, doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have, I did say perfect. Imperfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. What we want is just, we're doing a lot of these. We're creating a lot of data points, and the ones that are going to be the most compelling are going to rise to the top. And so we do a very similar process here. We'll take all those pink the pink
Oh, should we?
characteristics.
Let's grab some of these, maybe make some more there, and we'll grab them over here. I don't think we have to do the exact
No, we don't
activity.
have,
We've
it's
kind of
okay.
already showed this.
Yep.
So,
And then
yeah,
you
you
have
get
your
the idea.
exactly. And it's the same thing, right? So it's from here on out, it's the same thing. And then you vote for your top five, and then you list your 5 themes. All right. So
Absolutely.
now you
Then what do
have
we do
your
with them?
yeah, so now you have your values themes. So let's start to put them into this idea, the values framework. So let me explain what we've created over the years. So the values framework, this is what we like to do is for each value, this is the end state for each value. I like to create one sheet, the power of like the one sheet, getting all the ideas into one sheet or one sticky. And the what we have here is this is the template that we use almost every time. So at the top, it's the name of the value. We haven't gotten there in the exercise, but this is where we're going to end up with. You do a little bit of copywriting and you think about how do you articulate that. The second piece here, the second largest copy, are 3 short hits that describe the value. So what is the summary? Now, give and get respect, you can have some assumptions about what that means, but I want to get a little more specific. I want to tell you that it's about equity, it's about embracing diversity, and it's about listening to understand. So that's our 3 quick hits. Then we define it even further. And here's where I'll describe the second error, the other fatal mistake that companies make when it comes to values. The other error is that they won't define it well enough. And that's what we're doing here. So on the left column, we have what we mean. What is the intent and the idea behind the value? In the middle column, what do we do? So values are defined by behavior. So let's describe what does it look like. On the right-hand column, we've got 2. What don't we do? We'll call them anti-behaviors. And then what we ask, how do we how do we hold ourselves accountable to delivering on this value? So take a screen grab if you need to. This is also on the website, greatmondays.com. This is what you want to do. This is how you want to write your value.
And if you
All right.
download the Miraverse template, you've got it right there as well.
Exactly. Exactly.
There
Thank you,
you
Rachel. All right.
go.
So how do we get there? How do we get there? So what we've done here is essentially like, what do we call it? See the magic in the everyday. You can put
Oh,
your
wow,
value
that's even
theme.
better.
Oh, in the
There we
yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah. Perfect. Right. It just happens. I just copyright in my sleep. So this is the like, what are we calling it? Now you can put the value theme here, or you can start to think about what that might look like. Or probably more likely is when you don't quite have it, there's too many words here. I like 4 or less words. So this is fine for now. It's the value theme. But now what I want to do is I want everybody to take a sticky and write the intent and the idea behind the value. Like, what are we talking about? So Rachel's little voiceover before, right? So this was what was it that you were saying? How would you
See the
describe this?
magic. I would say, see everything with a joyful eye, something like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We see magic. It's okay to be silly, kind of things with the magic.
Beautiful.
Those kind of things.
Perfect.
Uh,
So again, we're
embrace your
just kind of
inner. child. There we
or your inner
go.
magician. Exactly.
Oh yeah, that's right. You do copyright in your sleep. Right.
So what you're doing again, you're creating lots of data points, lots of information, and then you move on. You do the same thing. What do we do? So if we're thinking about see everything with a joyful eye, I guess that's kind of a behavior. But what would you say is like the day to day? What is the behavior that kind of leaps out here? If you're embracing your inner magician,
Wow.
you're like,
I
stop,
I
and I don't know. I'm just gonna write something. Go ahead. What?
smile. I had smile in there, right? But you didn't. Yeah, if you're feeling the smile, you don't have to force the smile,
Mm,
right?
hmm
So,
hmm hmm
or see new things with wonder, right? Be open to new ideas, kind of thing. That kind of behavior. With yeah, share discoveries with others, make time for fun. We talked about that silliness, right?
hmm I
There
don't
we
know. So
go.
maybe it's like, it's like
Practice.
yes, yes, and right.
Yep.
Um, so what we do, and then we're moving right along to the next one. What don't we
It's like
do?
yay and there we go.
Yeah,
We made a yay
exactly.
and.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Judge. So something anti-behavior. And you probably have less of these, but it's good. So it's like, what don't we do? Well, if we see the magic in the everyday, we don't judge immediately. Oh, that's a terrible idea. Never heard of that before. Serious all the time. Like, yeah, exactly. So those are good examples. And then what do we ask? So guiding questions. So Rachel, what are some questions we might ask ourselves to get us to see the magic in the everyday or to do some of these
What
actions,
do
share
I
discoveries
get
with
to
self? So,
do today? So one of the things I've actually heard lately, it was because in a book I read, changing your inner narrative. Instead of saying I have to do this today, what do I get to do today? That would be a great question. What do you have? Have I shared?
maybe something like that. Have you shared a
Yeah.
new idea, maybe a new idea or thought,
Mm-hmm.
or
Have I
um,
conjured a new idea with my magic?
very good.
There you
Ask
go. I'm
others
channeling
to
your
think.
inner
Yes,
copywriter.
beautiful. Very good. And then finally, what are the three short hits that summarize this? Now, what I would probably say you want to kind of sit with these and decide which which ones are starting to resonate. And then the final two steps would be what is the summary? So kind of synthesize all these things. So now we
Mm-hmm.
started, right? We started at like who's the person, what do they do, what is it, what are the themes, what does it mean they value, what are those themes, and then we start to think about, okay, so we're continuing to generate some ideas of what we do, what we don't do, and now we're bringing it back and we're saying, okay, what is this, we had this theme is about how we work together or seeing magic in the everyday. What is that really about? It's like appreciation, um, generation, new ideas, and maybe it's like uh, friendliness or sparkle. I don't know, whatever it might be. Sparkle. I don't know. I like sparkle. And then now,
Jazz hands.
jazz hands, hula hands, jazz hands. The
Hula
now
jazz hands.
who yes, hula jazz hands. I love it. So now you have this. You can start to put it into that template, and you can start to think about what are the words or phrases that you might use to describe this. And I like four less words, right? So it's like um, everyday magic. Maybe it's like I believe in everyday magic, and it's like at work.
Mhm.
That's interesting. What do you mean? Like that's crazy, girl. Like what are you talking about? And really, what you're saying
Continuous
is
magic.
continue. Beautiful. Love it. Perfect. So now one of your values is continuous magic. You know what we're talking about. We've described what we mean. What do we do? What do we don't do? What do we ask? And I think this is really beautiful because one, it's highly differentiated, which is excellent. It's hopefully brand aligned, and it's going to help you focus on really appreciating and creating some new innovations and accepting those ideas throughout the next, whatever we're working on this quarter or the next year or the next couple of years. And that's a very quick version of how we get to this. Usually a month or two that we're working through all this. So that's the values. If you have any questions, shoot me an email, josh@greatmondays.com. Thank you for coming to the second episode of Great Mondays Summer School. Stick around. Next week, we're going to be releasing episode 3 on behaviors, culture is all about behaviors, people. It's choices the cause and effect of the choices that we make. And that is what culture is all about. So we're going to get deeply into that, and we're going to talk about how to identify those behaviors that are going to make your culture great. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next time.